everybody, and welcome to We'd Rather Be Reading. I have two co-hosts with me today.
Dun, dun, dun. I'm back. And I have a baby. Another baby.
Another baby. Well, it's the first and only pod baby.
This is the first and only pod baby that will ever be.
Yeah.
Her name is Raven Faye. Faye spelled like the Faye in our books.
Of course.
I snuck that in. I'm not sure if you caught on that. I think he just is like, okay, phonetically that makes sense to spell it that way. And I'm like, yeah.
You're like, this is always the way it's spelled. Totally.
No one ever spells Faye any different way.
No, just like this. But it's good to have you back. I mean, it was fun being with Anita last week too, but it's good to have you back.
Thank you.
Like my husband said, it's better banter with Jerrica.
Thank you, JF. This is one positive feedback I have gotten from him in the whole year we've been doing this.
Little bit critical sometimes. It's a smidge. Sorry, I promise I wouldn't talk about you.
I still like you.
Me too. I like you too. Good. So God, how long did it take us to read this book?
7 million years, and that's how long it is. But if we consider all of the things that's happened in this book, it is could have been a 3-hour book, but it's just reiterated and reiterated and then rewinded and reviewed and...
So maybe we should tell them what book we're talking about. Because we
you guys don't know? Just take a wild guess of the longest, most monotonous
and it's not after
book of this year. That's not after.
Yeah. We're talking about Court by Tracy Wolff. And I managed last week, without prepping, to name them all the books in her series. Fantastic. In sequence.
That is impressive.
I'm going to see if I can do it again.
Okay.
It's Crush.
Yeah.
Crave. Covet and Court. And there's two more coming, which is something that I keep forgetting what it is all the time, and Cherish.
Right.
Yeah.
But with the end of this book, not spoiling anything, it seemed
we can't spoil it all, so go ahead.
I mean, I'm not going to spoil it at the beginning of the pod, but okay, I will anyways. It was kind of final. It had an epilogue, summed stuff up, and had a little, like, where are we now section also.
Charm is the one we're missing.
Oh, that's the next one? Or is that the one?
I think Charm is going to be the one where we get Hudson, what happened during the missing 4 months with Grace and Hudson, which, now when I've read this book, like, she was in Stone in, like, is it the first or the second book for 4 months? I think it's maybe the first book.
Yeah, first.
She's in the first book. She gets stuck in gargoyle form for 4 months with Hudson. And we've just now in this book learned that whenever she freezes time moves 6 times as fast in the in the frozen as in the outside. So when she's gone for 30 minutes, it's 5 minutes in the real world.
But in real world, she was gone for 4 months,
For 4 months, but that time 6.
Okay.
Becomes a lot.
Oh yeah, that's
like a couple of years.
That's definitely enough to develop a relationship because that was.
But I've been watching Love Is Blind now, and apparently it only takes 2 weeks of not even seeing each other to develop.
It takes 2 weeks
to develop a relationship and marry each other.
Who is allowing you to watch Love Is Blind? This is the dumbest show ever made.
I don't know. We've been watching Love Is Blind. JF is really into Love Is Blind and Melody Festival. Like it's Mellow season. We've been forced. Sweden is terrible this year at Mello. I just want to put that out there.
My daughter watched Mello with her friends last night. She's 5 years old, so
Did she like it?
This is the category of people watching this show. And her favorite girl won top 2 to go over to the next round. Mm-hmm. Can't tell you what her name was. It doesn't matter.
The one in the light fire outfit. Yeah. She was the only one who was slightly above terrible.
Okay. But she was a huge fan.
Yeah. Okay. That's good.
So you have a 5-year-old, at least.
Oh, no, she's very popular with the 5-year-olds.
Raven did not like the performance, she said.
You have good taste, Raven. You have good taste. Anyways, it takes only 2 weeks to fall in love, according to Love Is Blind. Okay. And you don't even have to see each other.
Okay.
You can just be in pods and talk to each other. But in Tracy Wolff world, it takes hundreds of hours to do anything. Particularly tell a story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or just experience life.
Yeah,
like, let's go to the grocery store, and then while we're there, we're going to pause midway in choosing our avocados, because we have to review what has happened from getting out of the car to getting into the grocery store.
We have to review what's happened from age 5 until let me give you a preview of what Court is like. Court is like this. If I am Grace and I now see you and Raven, I'm gonna go like, Jerrica, my friend, whom I love so much. She's so bubbly and happy and very cheerful, very flexible too, because she does a lot of yoga. And then she has that podcast. And then this one time we had dinner at our house, and then we did, you see, and I will keep going like that. And
it's
then
life stories.
And then you're going to say hi, and I'm just going to say hi.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was the book that we read, Court by Tracy Wolff. Main character's name is Grace, and all she does is reflect in her head. And
yeah.
But then when she's not reflecting, she is the most powerful.
Oh yeah.
And all of the special magician, all of the special magical creatures put into one.
Of course. Because we talked a little bit about this, Anita and I, last week, about how we have the two polar opposites of the Sarah from Whistler, the average regular girl who we don't understand why anyone would love, or, you know, gods would fall for, and you know, all of this. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we have Grace, which is, she's not just special, she's super special, most special out of all of the specials. All of her friends and everyone she talks to and who she cares about will also be the most special out of all of the special, out of their special, not quite as special as her, but up there in the same layer of special.
Though they are all teenagers, except for the vampires, who are a couple 100-year-old teenagers.
Yeah.
And they have no education, no experience,
no
training.
But they have all of the I mean, this is a continuity, like alarm bells going off in my head. It's been going off in my head for a while with these books, because the vampires, they're all in high school at Cadmere Academy. But the vampires are 200 years old because they age differently. And then I'm like, okay, so if they're 200 years old, but they're supposed to be around 20, does that mean that for every normal 1 year, it takes 10 years for a vampire to develop at that point? And then we were talking about them being babies must be like the most annoying ever, because then they're going to be like proper tiny infants for like 10 years. And this feels like a very freaking long time.
You know those moms that are like, oh, I love the baby face. I wish it lasted forever. And I'm like, has she walked yet?
Well, they could have a vampire baby and then they'd have a baby for 30 years, and they'd only make it to age 3, which, you know, is a fucking long time. But then in this Court book, we find out that the vampires get put in some kind of weird sleep underground, and this is how they develop extra powers. So, but still the math doesn't add up, because Hudson looks like he's 19. He's really close to 200. He was put in stasis, is what they call it, when he was 5. And he was taken out 13 years ago, so that's 18 years in total. But he was only kept in stasis for 120 years. So then shouldn't he be 139 and not like, I don't know, 200?
But his brother killed him / didn't kill him. And
but he just went back into stasis.
Yeah.
But the math still doesn't add up.
Okay.
Regardless. So many things in this book does not add up. No. It's like the Gargoyle Court has been frozen for 1,000 years in time. And they spent this 1,000 years training. But it's been frozen for 1,000 years in our normal years. So for them, it's been more like 6,000 years.
It's a long time to train.
Of them just being in this court and training.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And since this is book 4 of all the books, right?
Yeah.
You would think that there's something more developed happening with Grace being a part of the Gargoyles, but instead she finds out she's a gargoyle, and then very much other stuff happens. And then the Gargoyles get unfrozen. She becomes their queen, like, in a blink of an eye.
Yeah, because the unkillable beast turns out to be the Gargoyle king, and then he's like, I'm not going to be king anymore. Here you go, you be queen now. Yeah,
and then the army, who's been training now, as we know, of the maths for 6,000 years. And it says, well, we're not going to follow this puny little girl that has literally 0 minutes of training.
Because she keeps lying to us and she keeps not trusting us with the information, but every time she says something to them, they're like, little girl.
Yeah, and when she goes off to war, which we don't really have that much explanation of all of these threats, courts, strings that she has in her head. Not sure what they are.
Can we talk about the strings
But
for a
wait.
moment?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. But wait.
Okay, good.
So then she's like, I have a plan. Of course, she tells nobody her plan because she tells nobody her plans ever.
She just talks in her head
Yeah.
to herself, recapping how she knows everyone and how much she
Gargoyle
loves them.
army, yeah, exactly. The Gargoyle army says, we're not following you.
No.
Because, no, this is a bad idea. You have no leadership skills or training whatsoever.
And
I
you're
was like,
selfish and you lie.
yeah. And I was like, well, that is accurate.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then, without any communication that we know of, they show up anyways.
And then they're like, you're now our queen. And I'm like, how?
When did this happen?
How?
This
Was
is a
he just
change of-
listening in on everything she said? And then when she was like, we will sacrifice ourselves for everything, in her big speech that
Yeah.
she had there in the end.
Yeah.
It was probably that. I don't know.
Anyways,
My notes
was
on this is,
random.
oh, Grace, so annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the
Which
whole
just
book
sums
through.
up the whole book. But let's talk a little bit about Tracy Wolff.
Okay.
Tracy Wolff is a New York Times and USA Today best-selling author. She is a lover of vampires, dragons, and all things that go bump in the night, which is proven in her books because she put all of those things in there.
All of the
them.
magical things, okay?
She's a one-time English professor, and she now devotes all her time to writing dark and romantic stories with tortured heroes and kick-butt heroines. Okay. She's written all of her 60-plus novels from her home in Austin, Texas, which she shares with her family. So this woman's written like a shit ton of books.
That's cool.
Regardless, we only know her from this Court Crave Crush
I think
Covet
so.
series. Yeah. Have you read anything else?
I don't know
in this
because
list?
I have read
You're like, there's
very
lots
many
of
vampire
shirtless
stuff.
men here,
Yeah,
so maybe
this
I
looks
do
like
know.
a book that I've read.
Maybe I have read something like this. Anyways, I have not read any of her other books because they don't show up as read here in my
Okay. Goodreads knows
Yes.
all. Okay.
Yes, Goodreads knows all of my books for the past 3 years, maybe. If it's before then, who knows? Anyways, so we read Court, and last year we did read the other 3 that came out because they all came out like 2020, 2 of them 2021 and 2021, and we read them all like
Within the year.
within the year, yeah. And we were very excited about it. I don't know why, because we hated them as we were reading them, all of them.
know,
And I still remember
didn't
you explaining what Grace was by she's the opposite of a ghost. Which, if you guys didn't know, is apparently a gargoyle.
But it's like the most solid thing ever. A ghost is completely ethereal, translucent, and a gargoyle is all stone.
But if we're going to try to recap these books a little bit, just to show you guys, because we went right into the ranting, which, is hard to avoid when reading these books.
I've been away
honestly.
for a couple weeks now, and it was in my soul. I needed to let it out.
Yeah. So this starts with Grace being like a normal girl living with her family in San Diego, and then her parents are killed. So she goes to stay with her cousin up in Alaska at Cadmere Academy, where her uncle is the headmaster.
Yeah.
And when she gets there, everyone's pretending to be normal, but in reality, it's actually a book for supernaturals. So it turns out...
School for supernatural.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. It's also a book for supernaturals.
Yeah.
I can't speak. Sorry. It's a school for supernaturals, and it turns out that all these people that she's been getting to know are dragons and witches and werewolves and vampires.
The boy she has a crush on is a vampire, and his name is Jackson.
Well, they touch, and then he gets all flustered, and he hides away from her, and then it turns out that they have a mating bond, which you guys all know how I feel about mating bonds. It's not my favorite.
And I love mating bonds, but I will have to say this mating bond story in this book's awful.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the strings, which we're going to come to. But anyways, she sees this mating bone as a physical string within her that she can grab with her hand, but it's on her inside. Regardless. And then it also turns out that she has this other platinum string within her that turns her into a gargoyle because, hey, she's a gargoyle. Mm-hmm. This is like the super big reveal of book 1. And then in book 2... Jackson's brother Hudson, who's supposed to be the most evil of all the vampires, is free, and they thought they killed him, but he's not dead. He comes back with Grace. He's stuck in her head for like the longest time, and then he comes out of her head, and And then the mating bond with Jackson is broken by the bloodletter, or no, it gets broken by the drag. It's someone who breaks it so that she would lose this Lodaris contest, which is the most ridiculous contest ever. It's like a game, which is not a game, and it's dead serious, and you can become like a ruler from winning this game. Anyways, and Jackson and Hudson's father is now dead set on killing Grace. Yeah. Because, can't have this 17-year or 16-year-old girl running around being a gargoyle. That messes up his plans. And then the mating bond with Jackson is broken, and as soon as she touches Hudson, she now has a mating bond with him instead. Because, jumping from brother to brother, that's the best way to do things. Keep it in the family and all of that stuff. And then towards the end, she also gets this bond with this unkillable beast that turns out he's been in his gargoyle form for too long, that he's absorbed rock around him and become ginormous. Yeah. And he's been chained with these unbreakable chains, so they have to go find this smith who will get this lock key thing. It's all messed up. And then Hudson buys her promise ring and he makes a promise to her. And now at the end of court, we find out what the promise was, which was like, duh. Of course, is I promise to love you until the stars all die. Like, we figured that out. And it's like supposed to be like a funny kind of thing going through the book, that she guesses what he promised her with all these stupid guesses, like all the way through the book, which is just not great and kind of boring. And she also has this dad joke challenge thing with Jackson that is like,
is it just Jackson or Flint?
It's just Jackson. And Flint is a dragon, and at one point his mom, who's the dragon queen, she gives up her dragon heart to save Jackson because it turned out that his bond with Grace was the only thing keeping him alive, and now he's dying. So he gets the dragon heart, and this is going to be a free-for-all then for Flint, the dragon boy, and Jackson, the vampire boy, to be in love with each other, which was how it was meant to be from the beginning.
Right, and we see that happening at the end of this fourth book also.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem natural, I have to say. Like, we sort of guessed it from the very beginning, like, aha, now they're going to get together.
Yeah.
But there isn't really, like, that good of a relationship between them for me to be, like, cheering for them at all. In fact, I wish Luca stayed alive and was with Flint instead. Or like anybody else with Flint.
Pretty much.
I don't think that him and Jackson have like a good written relationship. And on that same note, I'm not so sure I think Hudson and Grace have a really strong relationship either.
Can we also talk about the narrators?
Oh, but we have to. But are you done your summary? By the way, it was very efficient.
It was. Well, no, and in the fourth book, I'm just going to do a little bit. Then they find the Gargoyle Court, and it's been frozen in time. But when they go to the actual location in real time, it's just like ruins. It's on Ireland. And then Jackson and Hudson's dad is trying to become a god, and this has been his whole plot this whole time. He wants to be a god, and it turns out that Grace is not just a gargoyle, she's also a demigod, because she's the granddaughter of a demigod.
And a witch too.
And then she's also a witch, because her father was a witch, or her mother, someone was a witch.
Yeah.
So,
her mother is a necromancer.
Piling
so her mom was a witch,
the specialness here with everything.
It was a lot of specialness.
Yeah, and Hudson has this power where he can just wish things out of existence, but it breaks his soul every time he does it. He's very tortured with this.
Yeah, and somebody says to him, like, oh, it's a burden to carry the, darkness of one soul. You don't want to take on other souls. And whenever he kills somebody with his soul power, he takes on their soul too. And I'm just thinking, that's not explained well.
No. And he wants Grace to take away his power, and she's like, no, because I am 16 years old and I know better than everyone else, so I'm not going to do that. Yeah. She's very know-it-all for someone who literally knew nothing. Like,
she was a human 1 minute ago.
How long of a time has this been since the beginning of the Crush book?
It's good, because you were just talking about that. So she was
we're talking in like less than a year.
Real time 4 months, and then it had gone 1 month from the time Luca died to the end of the book.
I mean, I think we're honestly still in the same academic year, if we're talking school years. So she came to school in the fall. She got frozen for 4 months. Shit happened, and now they're towards spring, summer.
Because it's not winter anymore.
So, I mean, there's a lot of shit to have happened. And for someone who knew nothing about the supernatural world, she's now very freaking well versed in it. And she's making lots and lots of decisions.
Yeah. I have a plan. I'm not going to tell anybody about it. I'm like, I would never follow you.
And then there's... Okay, I think I'm done with my summary. There's a battle towards the end at a mini Stonehenge or a new Stonehenge or whatever the frick they call it, with all these witches. And all of these people, they were in jail for a bit in book 3. And then the people come from their Remy, and he's like all-powerful warlord or whatever, warlock. And
I like Remy, though.
I mean, I like Remy too. I just don't understand why he's following Grace.
No, it
and
makes
then
no
they
sense.
do this contest for the tears of like life there for a bit, which is like a puzzle game, which I was like, really? And no one succeeded in this ever. But of course, Grace and her friends can do it because they're so good at puzzles.
And then the like worst beast ever that's in it ends up being a 5-year-old. And I think, ick, like that was a poor decision to have like somebody this beast that everybody has been killing over the years. And he just gets reanimated. Yeah. And then... the Grace is like considering killing him, and everyone else of her friends are like, yeah, he's a horrible beast, like he's killed all these people over the years and things like that. Just kill him. And then she doesn't kill him, and he turns into a baby child.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh gosh, no, you should not kill a 5-year-old.
No, and they're like, you're the only one who's shown mercy. And it's like...
good God.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Grace being the most special of the most special. Here we go again.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much what happens. I mean, there's a bunch of other stuff that happens. There's a lighthouse and a blown-up bathroom and Grace touching these strings. Let's talk about the strings. I need to talk about the strings.
Yeah, immediately.
So Grace has all these multicolored strings, and we try to talk about like how this would be, because I have a hard time with the visualization of this. So she has like this cluster, and I personally choose to see it like a cable cluster, you know, like when you have a massive amount of cables.
Yeah, okay.
Like zip tied together.
Yeah. Going
from one point to another. Like I visualize it like that, where she can go in and she can grab one of them, and when she grabs them, stuff happens. Like she can turn into a gargoyle, or she has her bond to Hudson and she can send power, or with her bond to Shatstein and the unkillable beast, she can communicate down this. But it's also this green one where if she brushes against it, it's her demigod string, and then shit starts happening that's not good. And that's when she got frozen in time as a gargoyle. And it's like at one point they're like, okay, so think back on when you grabbed your platinum string that time. Did you accidentally brush this other string with your hand? And I'm like, if these are strings on her inside, does she then take her hand and shove it through her chest and grab these things? Or does she have hands on the inside of her brain where she can just grab these little, and they can actually physically touch the other ones by like accidentally grazing? Like, I don't understand it.
I'm thinking, okay, since you've never read or watched A Discovery of Witches, I'm thinking they just stole this concept from there. Okay. Because she has strings and she needs to physically use her hands to tie them in knots. So what she does is she's like in meditative mode, and she sees the strings on the outside of her physical body.
Okay.
But she's like out. And she uses her hands to then pull on these strings and try to thread through them. And like as she gets better and better, she can have her eyes open and visualize them in front of herself. Okay. But it's a visualization. A little bit like if we were projecting like what's that called that they're doing with ABBA?
The hologram.
Like a hologram version of it.
But the like accidentally grazing, and she doesn't say that she grabs it. She says she reaches inside herself and grabs it. She says that on a few occasions. Yeah. I am confused. These strings confuse me.
I mean, the brushing against it doesn't make too much sense to me either. And also, like the communication down the string, do they also have strings? Is everyone having strings? Can you cut these strings and then cut your tie to these people?
But just like it could be done because they did it with Jackson, like the faked bond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Weird.
I don't know. It's so weird.
But, and then my biggest pet peeve of books is where I have to read 1,000 million pages, and at the very end, that's when everything happens. And I'm like, oh my God, I wish this happened earlier. I wish I had more epilogue, all that kind of stuff. And in this book, a lot of things happen throughout it. And at the end, when we're like peeking up to the war, and I know we only have 40 minutes left of this 24-hour book.
Yeah.
I am like, what's going to happen? And you know what happens? She freezes them all and has a conversation with the bad guy. That's it.
Yeah. Yep.
The end. Most anticlimactic last 20 minutes ever.
And also, she's so immature, Grace. Like, and when she comes with all of her friends to the frozen gargoyle court, like she escapes there to try to recruit the court and to steal a ring. She doesn't ask for it. She's just going to steal it. And then when Hudson drinks her blood, he can't be in the sunlight.
Okay.
Because vampires cannot be in the sunlight when they drank human blood. Apparently this works for gargoyle blood too, but whatever.
She's not even a little bit human. She's a goddamn
I am not
god.
going to go down that path. But so Chastain says that Hudson is a lover, not a fighter, because he can't go in the sun.
Right.
And then to show him off, she starts making out with Hudson in front of Chastain. And I'm like, how fucking childish are you? That's like such a teenage shitty thing to do.
But that's at least one thing you would do as a teenager.
Anyways, and then towards the end, there's the epilogue, and they've moved to San Diego, and she's gonna now move the gargoyle court there. And I'm like, why the fuck would they move to San Diego, and why is Hudson out? And then he has a daylight ring, and I'm like, please, fuck. The tropes. Like,
they took everything from Twilight. Actually, when I was reading...
That's not in Twilight. Twilight, they can be out in the sun because they just glitter. That's Vampire Diaries. Yeah. It is ridiculous. And then also Jackson getting a dragon heart means that he can shift into dragon. I was like, fucking hell, no, enough. I'm done with this shit. And this got me really going with the mating bonds.
Yeah.
Because what it does have in the mating bonds here, I'm going to rant a little bit, I'll try to be short, is you can reject your mating bond in these books, which I prefer it because there's a level of consent attached to it. So you have to like agree to your mating bond, which is great and all. But you have this society built up, this world that she's built, where there's like courts, where you have like the vampire king and queen, you have the gargoyle king and queen, and now you have the gargoyle being mated to a vampire, and the previous gargoyle king was mated to a demigod who could be whatever the fuck she wanted to be. No, she was mated to an actual god, like the goddess of chaos, right? And then, but every other like court is like dragon with dragon, werewolf with werewolf, vampire with vampire, blah, blah, blah. But now, with this little mix of friends, because Tracy Wolff wants the friends to stay together, we're gonna have dragon with vampire, vampire with gargoyle. And, you know, we're gonna have all of these interspecies. And what happens then?
Yeah, they're not gonna be able to have babies.
And they're not gonna be able to have courts like that.
Yeah. I mean, but then maybe the courts will get along better. Like, I don't have a problem with that. Or are you
gonna have all the mixed beasts to kind of... Grace, gargoyle, witch, demigod. Like, is this what's gonna happen? Like, are you gonna have just mixed beasts going forward? Which is an excellent book, by the way. This David Wallace. It's a Canadian guy. He did this mixed beast book, which is hilarious. Where there's like a bumblebeaver and it's so fun. Completely off topic here, but I love that book with my kids. I'll lend it to you.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't mind mixed beasts storylines or even mixed courts. I think that's going to be fine, but I don't see a possibility of like vampires mating with gargoyles. I don't see how that baby will be able to be a vampire gargoyle baby.
This baby is going to be a demigod vampire gargoyle witch baby.
Yeah.
But
then that baby's going to be the most special
but
baby.
She's already is the most special. Like, it would be most special out of the most special.
Yeah.
Anyways, hated these books.
You hate it.
Don't want to read any more of them. We'll still pick them up when they come out next.
As soon as we hear about them, we're going to be like, it comes out next week. We're going to be so excited.
And we're going to forget. But I need to just say one thing about the narrator too before we drop
We have to talk about narrators a little bit.
Yeah, we do. And mostly the fact that the narrator for Grace seems to believe that in British English you say con. Because she did. Every time she did Hudson's accent in British English, she said, I can't do that. And I'm like,
can't.
No, you can't do that, but you can do that. Yeah? And it drove me insane. And her Irish accent was...
abysmal. It was abysmal. But her own accent was a little bit like this that she talked the whole way through. And then when she had to do a man's voice, she had the man's voice like this. And I'm like, how is it possible that the man's voice got higher? and her voice for Flint or Jackson was like just a little bit different from each other. That sometimes I didn't know who was talking, which is why I asked earlier, was it the jokes with Joe Jackson or was it with Flynn too? Because the voice was the same.
Raspy voice.
But these are giant books with a big fat budget. They should have looked further into the narration opportunities, because I don't think this is the best Grace ever, and I also don't think that was the best Hudson ever. And I think that they should probably have looked into, not that they needed to have perspectives in the book, like Jackson perspective, Hudson perspective, which they had in the previous book, right?
No, it's only ever been the first and the last chapter from a different perspective.
Oh, okay.
That's kind of like the thing, and I keep hoping it's going to be different, and then I keep realizing that no, it's just... And honestly, if you want to know exactly what happens in this book, but you don't want to sit through 23 hours of it, just listen to the last 40 minutes. That's Hudson's chapter, and he summarizes the whole book in 40 minutes.
Yeah.
That took Grace 23 hours.
And in a pretty okay accent also.
Yeah. And he, like, he doesn't skip anything.
If you're going to have a British character in your book, hire a British narrator.
Yeah.
Just hire a British narrator. There's millions of them.
Yeah. Someone who can do the accent.
Not someone who could do the accent, somebody who has the goddamn accent.
Yeah, but he's British, isn't he?
I don't think so. There was so many slip-ups in his accent, too. No, you know what I think? I think he was, like, northern something. And it didn't suit with what his accent was supposed to be. But it doesn't matter. The narration of the book was not great. I would have rather read them, but then again, I wouldn't, because I would have had to see how big these books were.
1,000 pages. No, I could not have read them. That would have been terrible,
I would have to have many naps, and I don't have time for that right now.
No.
So I didn't hate as much as Leah did, because I think that they're kind of fun, but all of the recapping that the main character Grace does is really monotonous and overdone, and it really can be taken out in order to make this book better. So I sort of wish that the editors would have tapered down the book and been like, okay, Tracy Wolff, these are massive books.
Yeah.
We could take a couple hundred pages out of here, and
just anytime she recaps. It's not necessary.
Not any time, but like just unnecessary times. You know, like you said, you look at the friend's face and then do the whole life.
Every time she looks at her cousin. Or every time she looks at Hudson.
I know.
Oh, there's Hudson. I love him so much. He's my soulmate. He's my one and only. I will love him eternally. He's so strong and brave. He's so powerful. He can do anything. I have all my faith in him. I trust him implicitly. There's Hudson. Hi, Hudson.
I actually think that couple, Hudson and Grace, are on the same level as the after couple for me. In like irritation and like nonsense to love each other.
Yeah. It makes no sense. No, there's got to be someone better for Hudson. Like, I have higher hopes for Hudson. Like, I find Grace to be really annoying.
Yeah.
Anyways, next week we're going to read Mark of the Raven by Morgan L. Busey. Bussy?
Yeah,
Bussy?
sure. Busset. Busset.
Anyway,
we're going to look up how to pronounce your last name.
We're gonna listen closely at the beginning of the book when they say this book by, and we will repeat it accordingly next week. But until then,
keep on reading.
And, I don't know, skip this book if you...
Just listen to our podcast. We've got all the rants and all the info you need about every book that's too long for you to read. You're welcome.
You're welcome. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
We'd Rather Be Reading is an original podcast by Jerrica and Leah Sanford. The music for The Penguins, written and performed by David Allred from the album The Transition, courtesy of Erased Tapes. Please check him out on Spotify and check us out on social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram at We'd Rather Be Reading and on Twitter at We'd Rather Read. You can also email us at we'drathebereadingthepod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.